Before every operation, the thief would thoroughly clean his body with a steel brush, ensuring there were no traces left on his skin. Once everything was ready, George, dressed in a suit, walked into the underground parking lot. As soon as he got in the car, he turned on the navigation and precisely located a high-end delivery driver. With a press on the gas pedal, the car left the parking space and George began his harvest journey for the day. He quickly arrived at the target location and found the delivery driver. But he didn't follow him from behind. Instead, he overtook him and got ahead of him. When they reached a narrow bridge where overtaking was impossible, George slowly stopped the car. Once he saw the vehicle behind approach, he quickly put on a mask and pressed the hazard lights. The delivery driver behind quickly stuck his head out of the window and asked what was going on. George ignored him, calmly took out his gun, and then pressed the automatic trunk release. Seeing this situation, the delivery driver instinctively walked over to check what was going on with the car.
Hands on your head.
In this situation, the delivery driver had no chance to resist. George didn't hesitate for a second and stuffed him into his trunk. He then forced the driver to give him the unlock code for his phone. Once done, George quickly shut the trunk and walked to the front of the delivery driver's car. He first removed the tracker he had installed earlier, then took the delivery driver's phone. With that, the first step of the robbery was perfectly completed. As the sun slowly rose, George's car arrived at the next location. After checking the time, it was about right. He used the delivery driver's phone to send a text to the luxury store owner. After receiving it, the owner began checking the weapons of the other two delivery drivers. According to the owner's plan, the 2 cars and 3 people were transporting diamonds worth $3 million. It should have been a foolproof situation. None of them expected that the 3rd delivery driver following the car had already been replaced by the thief, George. Because the distance wasn't far, the 2 cars quickly arrived at the destination. George put on his mask again and parked his car next to the other. He intentionally parked very close so that the person in the passenger seat couldn't open the door. The 2 men, unprepared, saw the gun aimed at them and both instinctively raised their hands. Nick not only held the truth, but also had live surveillance footage of the 2 men's families. If they didn't cooperate or resisted, their families would be in danger. For regular salaried workers, this salary wasn't worth risking their lives over. So they decisively followed George's orders and threw their phones and weapons into his passenger seat. At this point, George got out of the car holding his gun and demanded to know where the diamonds were hidden. Without any surprises, the man handed over the hidden diamonds to George, and George, as planned, released the delivery driver from the trunk. He didn't notice anything unusual in the car. George sat back in the car and was ready to leave, but just as he put down his gun, the man in the passenger seat pulled out a revolver. Perhaps it was due to nerves, but the shot hit the car window and George was really startled. He didn't have time to think, he immediately drove off. Although he wasn't injured, this was a great insult to George, who had never failed before. It was an extreme humiliation. George had a criminal obsession with perfection, and he always strived for perfection in every robbery plan. There could never be any injuries involved, not even himself, because in the judicial system, a theft without casualties was considered the least serious. This was why George had been able to continue committing crimes and remain at large for so many years. It wasn't until he entered the underground garage that George finally calmed down from the tense atmosphere. He took a few deep breaths and then finally removed his contact lenses. He got out of the car and retrieved a car cover from another vehicle to cover the involved vehicle. It was disguised as an unused, long idle vehicle. Soon, George carried his spoils back to his seaside mansion. He placed the stolen diamonds into a small bag and prepared to sell them shortly.